Hey, ANPers, this is Dr. Jones checking in, touching base. This is ANP2 Lecture Test 4, Video 13. And we are in the digestive chapter, which is the last third-ish of the test 4 material, top of page 22. Okay. So again, if yours prints differently than mine, this is what we're looking for. 24.4, the stomach aids in chemical and mechanical digestion. So there we are. Stomachs. Three major functions of the stomach. It stores food, it mechanically digests the food, that means to break it up into smaller bits, and chemically digests the food, and that's to chemically break it down. Chyme is what we call the food mixture in the stomach. As you recall, it's food going in your mouth, and then you swallow a bolus. And then once it mixes with the stomach contents, it is now chyme, and that is a hard CH, which is a Greek CH like the word Christmas. Everybody's like, CH doesn't say K, and then you're like, Christmas, and then they're like, so it does. It's all Greek to me. I took Latin in high school. I've never studied Greek at all. Like alpha and beta are the first two letters, and omega is the last letter. There you go. It's like a delta and an epsilon and all kinds of fun stuff in there. That's about all I know. So the three, we already did that. Notes on anything you didn't remember from lab. Again, usually about a minute into these videos, I have a card with a link to the lab playlist. If you are not familiar with the lab material for this stuff, go learn it and then come back and read that section. Anything in that section that you did not know off the top of your head already when you read it, please write it down because that is both lecture and lab material. Histology of the stomach. The stomach is lined with simple columnar epithelium, which produces a carpet of mucus, as we mentioned before, which makes both carpet and mucus seem more disgusting by association. So I live in Rockport, and we don't have dirt or clay. We have sand because this used to be a barrier island, apparently, a while back. The geologists could tell you how long ago. In fact, the geologists have told me how long ago, and I don't remember. Not my science. So, and in Rockport, where there's sand, you don't want carpet because the carpet is just going to collect the sand, and it's just going to be a sandy, disgusting mess. And after Harvey, we had to do the house, and my mom kept asking, well, don't you want carpet? Because my parents live in Missouri where it's cold, and you really do need carpet because the floor is so friggin' cold. And Mom was like, don't you want carpet? And I was like, no. Not even in the bedrooms? No. And then after we got back in the house and it was carefully scheduled for the work people to be gone, they weren't gone. My parents came down. So it was like the six of us plus my parents plus, all of the work people every day for 2 weeks. And after all the sweeping of sand that my mom did of those workmen tracking in every day, she was like, oh, thank goodness you didn't put down carpet. So I even converted my mother to you don't put down carpet when there's sand. Never thought that would happen. We're past halfway through the semester, aren't we? So a carpet of mucus, and it's that carpet of mucus that protects your cells from the hydrochloric acid, the acidic environment in the lumen of the stomach. So necessary, just sounds gross. The gastric pits are these openings in the wall of the lumen, the gastric pits. And they open to the gastric glands. Gastric glands. So, gastric glands. The gastric pits opening in the stomach wall, they make new epithelial cells and they live 3 to 7 days. So even less time than the platelets. Like the white blood cells were like months, and then the platelets were like a week, 10 days. And now here we are, the gastric pit cells, the stomach lining cells last 3 to 7 days, so they're constantly being replaced. Gastric glands produce gastric juice. Parietal cells make intrinsic factor, which is used in vitamin B12 absorption, and the parietal cells secrete intrinsic factor and hydrochloric acid. I should put the hydrochloric acid first because the intrinsic factor is important for vitamin B12 absorption, but the same cells also make hydrochloric acid. So, hydrochloric acid is produced in the lumen. I think we have a picture for this. That's not the picture for that. Still not. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. All right. Hydrogen and chloride are transported independently. All right, I know I have a picture of that. Discard. Where's the stomach cell pictures? Did I take the stomach cell pictures out? I must have. Huh. I remembered I took some of the digestive material out, but I don't remember I took that much out. It's okay, we're going with it. The 3 important functions of having a highly acidic pH of 1.5 to 2.0 is that it, number 1, kills germs. Number 2, denatures proteins, which unfolds them so that they're non-functional. And still number 2, inactivates enzymes, which again unfolds them so that they're non-functional. Number 3, it breaks down cell walls. Again, mammals don't have cell walls, only plants have cell walls. So it breaks down cell walls in plants. And it breaks down connective tissue, and you find connective tissue in animals. Chief cells secrete pepsinogen. I was trying to... Pepsinogen, we all recall that the O-gen makes whatever comes before it. So pepsinogen makes pepsin, which is an active proteolytic. So protein digesting, proteo for protein, lytic for lysis, which is a loosening of, which is anywhere between a loosening of, a digestion, and an explosion, in this case a digestion. And it functions best at pH, gasp, 1.5 to 2.0. I'm shocked. Renin with the extra N. So before we talked about the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, and that is the RAAS, that is R-E-N-I-N. This is R-E-N-N-I-N with a second, 1, 2, 3, third N, second in a row, but third total. Not weird. Okay, I think it's too late at night for this. And okay, so the renin, let's talk about the function now, coagulates milk proteins, and it's found in newborn stomachs. And they also make gastric lipase. Lipase, we already learned, is the enzyme that digests lipo, which is fats. And gastric, we know, means stomach, so their stomachs make lipase. That's gastric lipase. That's the difference between gastric lipase and lingual lipase. Lingual lipase is made on the tongue, and gastric lipase is made in the tummy, stomach. Okay, so renin versus renin, that's on the final. And then the lipases digest fats. The amylase digests carbs. G cells produce gastrin. And gastrin functions to stimulate gastric churning. So it makes you tummy churn. And the D cells produce somatostatin, which inhibits gastrin. And then at the bottom of the same page, I have written down ghrelin. Ghrelin makes you hungry. There you go. So we've had a hormone for satiety from fats and a hormone for hunger from the stomach. How are we doing on time? Did I start a timer? I did. We have 8 minutes left. Let's see if we can finish this page or at least the section 24.4. Looks like we're still on this. It continues digestion of carbs. So the stomach does not begin the digestion of carbs. The mouth begins digestion of carbs with salivary amylase in the saliva, salivary amylase. And the stomach continues the digestion of carbs by salivary amylase and lipids by lingual lipase. And the protein carries out preliminary digestion of, stomach carries out preliminary digestion of proteins by the pepsin. Digestion does take place in the stomach, and nutrient absorption mostly does not. The chyme leaves the stomach. Most carbs, lipids, and proteins are partially digested. Alcohol and lipid-soluble drugs. Alcohol is absorbed in the stomach because alcohol is lipid-soluble, so it goes through the cell membrane like they're not even there. So fatty foods absorb alcohol and slow its absorption. So if you drink alcohol on an empty stomach, it just absorbs straight into your system and it hits you faster. So if you're trying to not get stupid and leave yourself at risk of being taken advantage of, but you want to drink quickly, which is kind of odd because alcohol is expensive. And it makes you stupid. It lowers your inhibitions so that you make stupid choices. It doesn't make you stupid, it makes you do stupid things. Subtle but important distinction. So if you were to eat fatty foods before you drink alcohol, then the alcohol would be absorbed into the fatty foods. And then fatty foods take longer to digest than, say, like raw fruits and vegetables or rice. So if you're wanting to slow the absorption of the alcohol into your system, then fatty foods, greasy foods are the way to go. Just like when you wake up hungover and you want like the greasiest, nastiest, slimiest food you can find. Yeah, that's why. Because your body knows. Okay. Also, general rule of thumb to get less stupid. A, never drive if you're drinking. I understand that you might not care about your own safety, but you don't get to put other people's safety at risk. Period. That's why we wear masks during COVID times. We wear seatbelts to protect ourselves, right? But we don't drive drunk to protect other people. I mean, and to protect ourselves, but if you're drinking that much and you're like, okay, you think you're okay to drive, then, but you don't have the right to make that choice for other people. Period. Drink your drink and then drink that much water. No, let's make it a full glass of water in case you're doing shots. Drink a glass of water. Drink your drink, drink a glass of water, and then drink your other drink. Also, empty stomachs are bad because it absorbs so quickly. So I'm not a drinker, as you could probably tell. I understand that drinking happens, and like I'm cool with drinking, but like when it's fun and not when you get yourself hurt and not when you get other people hurt, then it's just stupid. Okay, so there are phases of digestion, phases of gastric activity. First is the cephalic phase. We all know that cephalic means head. This is when you think about food. So every single food commercial that comes on that looks tasty knocks you straight into the cephalic phase, which makes your gut churn and releases these things: mucus, the pepsinogen, the hydrochloric acid, the gastrin. Okay, so the stomach makes gastric juice when you think about foods. The gastric phase is when the food chyme at this point is in the stomach. And then it secretes acids and churns. And here's your whole little feedback loop thing here going. And then the intestinal phase is once this chyme starts to leave the stomach and enter the small intestine. And that triggers several things in the small intestine that make the intestinal phase. So one of the things it does is it slows the peristalsis, it slows the gastric emptying into the small intestine. This first part of the small intestine is very important for digestion, and so once there's some partially digested food in there, you slow the rate of gastric emptying so that you have time to digest this before you move more in there. And it releases CCK. Is that on the picture? There you go, CCK, which is cholecystokinin. Cholecystokinin is a hormone that makes your gallbladder squeeze the bile out into the small intestine. It's green. Let's go with green. So the CCK goes kind of this way. The gallbladder will be here-ish, and then it comes this direction into the small intestine and helps to emulsify the fats. So, next. The gastroenteric reflex. Gastro is stomach, enteric are the intestines. So, the food in the stomach increases motility and secretion in the small intestines. So when you have food in the stomach, it tells the intestines, oh, hey, that partially digested food that you've been storing, time to get it out. So finish that process. And then gastroileal reflex, where it opens the ileocecal valve, which we haven't talked about yet. And that moves the partially digested food from the small intestine to the large intestine. And the ileocecal valve is between the small intestine and the large intestine, and emesis is vomiting. So let's talk about the ileocecal valve again. So we talked about the bone in the hip in 2401. And that's the iliac bone. And then we had a number of word roots that involved this ILIO, like the sacroiliac joint, sacroiliac joint. Okay, and that's an ILI to show that that is part of it refers to the bone, the hard tissue. ILEO is the ilium, not the ilium. So iliac with an I is the bone, ILI is a bone, ILE has to do with the intestines. So the ileum is the last part of the small intestine, and the cecum is the first little pouch in the ascending colon of the large intestine. So ileum with an E means intestines. So especially like on a lab test, in person or on Canvas, if you put, I can't even write it, ileo with an I, ileocecal valve, then that is absolutely wrong because you're referring to bone. You're not referring to small intestines. Ileocecal. So that's an E. All right. And all right, we'll come back for the next bit with the pancreas. So that was 22 and 23. Next will be video 14, note set page 23, and however far we get. All right. So this has been A&P 2, lecture test 4, video, I just wrote it down, 13. Thank you as always for tuning in. The education must go on. Dr. J out. Control Command